All right, fastest 15 minutes on the internet, fastest 15 minutes in social media. All right, I kind of want to talk about this whole thing about the origins of racism and white supremacy and white privilege and all of this kind of stuff. And I kind of want to do it from the perspective of the fact that, first of all, according to history, really, if you go back, and I always urge everybody to go back and research and study for yourself. Don't just take my word for it, because I want you to know that you know that you know. But okay, so I talked about in another video. I talked about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his theory about the two, basically the two creation stories, the two creation of man stories, where you have one where God created the human being, and then you have the other one where the being was taken out of a rib. The woman was made out of the rib of man. So one story being the creation of spiritual man, and the other one being the creation of physical man. Now, and then I talked about of course, the papyrus and some of the hieroglyphs and these were found in many of the temples. And it was talking about how that there were only 4 races of humans, and they were defined by color, and they were black, brown, red, and yellow, and everybody else. So those were the people who were considered to be humans, and this is by Kushite, Kemetic, and also Ethiopian, pretty much spirituality. And then everybody else was basically a creation. Elijah Muhammad's theory, which was recently confirmed by National Geographic magazine, his theory was that those two different creation stories, and one was the creation of white men. And so they called, and of course, how the Nation of Islam, it's like the white man, the black man is God, the white man is the devil. And I'm saying that, okay. And then we also have the fact of, okay, and then we have the law of polarity, meaning that they're opposites, and so they were created. So the human race was right-brained, and the non-human race was left-brained. So that's how come we have the dilemma that we have. And so remember when we had all the the uproar about how black people are so forgiving, and people are always so forgiving. It's also how a lot of times how we got taken advantage of, especially, when I speak of taking advantage of, I'm talking about indigenous people, because all of the indigenous people were what? They were the humans. They were the ones that had hue, H-U-E, meaning color. And so it mean, colored people, colored men. And then so even that's kind of where we got the whole colored, kind of thing going on. And also meaning that these people possessed melanin. And we know that melanin, then the whole 666, the proton, neutron, electron, 6 protons, 6 neutrons, 6 electrons, doesn't really mean beast, but that's what but according to Scripture, they made us into the beast. So that, once again, talking about saying and sewing and writing things down and turning things and flipping things around so that they take on another life or another meaning. And so that's why I always talk about the Bible, the King James, especially the King James version of the Bible, being incantations, spells, curses, and everything else against the indigenous people of the earth. And that's what it was intended to be. We had what? The Flavians, Sir Francis Bacon, Shakespeare, and we had all these different people that wrote those scriptures. They're not written by, as people say, they're not written, all scripture is God, God given and all that kind of stuff. Not true. All right, most of that stuff has been concocted in order to, to hold the indigenous people, the colored people of the earth down, and you see that it has worked. And that's why I always tell people, it's like, you can argue with me all you want, but once you put the facts, or what y'all say, receipts, get the receipts. The receipts show that it worked. For example, in another video, what did I say? I said there's a scripture that says, "Cursed is every man that hangs from a tree," which is where the ritual is a ritual. Lynching and picnics and all that, they're rituals in order to in order to hold us back, in order to scare us, in order to establish their supremacy. So that's why. And it's also a way of imposing their whole new world order thing. All right, so just know that that's what's up. So, but the origins of that. So when Alexander the Great, and I don't really consider him great, but when Alexander, think about it, all of the names, the original names, like that's why I say Alkebulan when I talk about Africa, because the original name was Alkebulan. Or here, somebody posted a really good thing about the turtle and the the turtle shell and the regions on the turtle shell and all that. And what people don't realize is that North America was called Turtle Island, okay, by the indigenous people. And it talked about how there were actually more days in the calendar, and the moon doesn't just have 12 cycles, it has 13 cycles, but it's actually imprinted on the shell of the turtle. And if you know how to read it and all that kind of stuff, not that I'm an expert on it, but I thought it was a really good article. But excuse me, here's the thing. So that's where they get being angry, because and some people say, well, they're like they say they're reptilian, or and there are pictures of them with tails, so them telling us that we had tails when they actually had them, and that they are actually so that they're actually descendants of animals, and the fact that they were cave dwellers, and the fact that the Moors, including when they actually developed this country, okay, they used all the Moorish science. And the reason why they split up the Masonic, they used the Masonic order, which was Kemetic. It's not European, it's not even Caucasian, it's completely stolen from Africa. Okay, but what they did was they took it once again and they made a evil faction of it. And that's why I always tell everybody, it's like, look, everything can be used, everything in the creation can be used for good or for evil. And so where we used it for good in order to understand more about the Most High, and even for that matter, more about ourselves, they used it in order to try to perpetrate evil. And so even John Hanson, the first president of the United States of America, who was a black man, who was a Moor, and he taught them, and at this point I believe that he was forced to teach them, because if you look at the Constitutional Convention and all those different paintings and pictures and stuff like that, he's there. He's always in the picture, but nobody, and he was the one who had the Moorish science and the Masonic science. And that's why they eventually separated the Masonic into the Scottish Rites and all those other different ones, and then they had the Prince Hall Masons, which black people are, and Eastern Stars, which black people still are to this day. But they didn't tell them. They told them part of the truth about the Masonic order, but they didn't tell them the whole truth. And so they took that, and those are the things that they took when they took us from Africa. So, and then they gave us this new religion, and that's why I say you have to be when you read the Bible and you understand all the encoding, it's been encoded for astrology, numerology, astrotheology, physics, the makeup of the human body, all of these things are in code in the Bible. That's why I tell people, like when they get, they say, man, forget the Bible and F the Bible and this, that, and the other thing. But I'm like, look, but if you understand it and you know how to decipher it and decode it, it's actually one of the best books of wisdom ever, But where did they get it from? They just stole it, plagiarized it, and then flipped it around. And so, but if you don't know what's been flipped around, then you might be cursing yourself. Just like people always like, Deuteronomy 28, I'm blessed. Those blessings were not intended for you. That's why we, and that's why we talk about, people call themselves, and the biggest thing is the Israelite. I'm an Israelite, or I'm a Hebrew. Those are the people of the Bible and all this kind of stuff. They are not. They simply are not. They were the people and the people that they turned into the enemies of the Bible, just like the Passover. Okay, the whole thing where the firstborn of Egypt, the firstborn of Egypt are always killed, the firstborn males of Egypt. And what happened? What's been happening in history? That's what I'm trying to tell you. So when y'all think, all of a sudden that whole thing just flipped around. Well, the Egyptians, the people from Kemet, those are your ancestors. Whether and I'm like, okay, so where was the land where, I could show you where Kemet is. I could show you the bodies of the people in Kemet. I could show you hieroglyphs of the people in Kemet. I could show you papyrus of the people in Kemet. But they can't show you anything. They can't show you, they always talk about, the Dead Sea Scrolls and this, that, and the other thing. But those things came literally thousands of years later. Thousands. So it's not even on the same. And that's why I talk about, you have to understand what the timeline is. Heru on the horizon was 50,000 years before the Bible, meaning that the deity that they derived, the Jesus from was here, long before any of the characters in the Bible. And all the characters in the Bible were plagiarized from Kushite, Kemetic, and Ethiopian theology or astrotheology. So basically that's how they came up with a lot of this stuff. They just made it up, or they, and so like I said, like if you look, and there are certain numbers that coincide, just like I was talking about the Masonic. So the number 40 is in the Bible to represent Imhotep. Okay, so 40 comes up in the Bible all the time to represent what? The Masonic order. Okay, the number 33 comes up all the time. 33 vertebrae in your back and all that kind of stuff. The number 12 signs of the zodiac. So 12, they always talk about, the 12 tribes. I'm from Judah. No, you not. It's like those numbers talk about the 12 months of the year, the 12 signs of the zodiac, all that kind of stuff. 12 disciples, 12, that number comes up. The other number that comes up all the time is 7. Why? Because you have 7 chakras. There are 7 musical notes. There are 7, just seven main colors in the spectrum of light. All of that's what I'm saying. So all of these things are basically things that come or are derived from spirituality. They're not derived from religion. And so, Enoch was he was the 7th from God, talking about, just all these different stories, but every single one of them is tied to African, or I should say Alkebulan spirituality. And they just took it and rewrote it, and then they put a whole bunch of curses and spells in it because they learned our spirituality. And so they took it from us, flipped it around, and we're like, here, let's feed it back to them. But this time, when they're saying the incantations and they're saying the curses and the spells, it's going to be against them. And that's exactly what they did. That's how come they started destroying and burning and doing all these kind of things. And most of these things can be proven as rituals. Even Holy Communion is an Akashic ritual. It's the eating of flesh and blood. What do they talk about? The eating of flesh and blood. It's evil. And it is proven, So think about it. Anyway, just wanted to talk about that today. Don't really want to talk about current events. Tired of hearing about everybody tripping. Anyway, Fast 15 Minutes is up. Hit like, hit subscribe, and hit the notification button. I love all of you.